to that massive cyber attack hitting American companies, including hospitals, part of a global assault on governments and businesses.
Welcome to Exciting Machines. Today, we're uncovering the most destructive hack ever used, NotPetya. Disguised as ransomware, this cyberweapon spread like wildfire, crashing entire networks, halting global shipping, and costing billions in damages. Stay tuned as we break down how it happened, who was behind it, and why NotPetya changed the cyber warfare landscape forever. NotPetya was one of the most devastating and sophisticated cyberattacks in the history of the internet. Emerging in late June 2017, NotPetya appeared at first glance to be a ransomware attack, but upon deeper inspection, it quickly revealed itself to be a far more insidious and destructive form of malware. What made NotPetya especially alarming was not just the speed and scale of its spread, but the geopolitical implications behind its creation and deployment. It wasn't just a criminal act for profit, it was cyber warfare, and it exposed the vulnerability of even the most secure digital infrastructures around the globe. The malware was named NotPetya because it closely resembled an earlier ransomware known as Petya, which had been circulating in the wild. However, security researchers quickly discovered that NotPetya had been carefully designed to look like Petya, while operating with completely different intentions. Unlike traditional ransomware, which encrypts files and demands payment for decryption keys, NotPetya irreversibly destroyed data. Even if a victim paid the ransom, they would never get their files back. This pointed to a very different goal: disruption and destruction, not financial gain. The attack originated in Ukraine, where it spread rapidly through a software update mechanism in a widely used accounting program called MEDOC. This software was mandatory for businesses operating in Ukraine, which meant that compromising it allowed the attackers to infect thousands of machines very quickly. Once installed on a victim's machine, NotPetya used a combination of sophisticated exploits, including Eternal Blue, an exploit allegedly developed by the NSA and later leaked by a group called the Shadow Brokers, to move laterally across networks. It also used credential harvesting and Windows Management Instrumentation, WMI, to spread even faster, making containment almost impossible for unprepared organizations. Within hours, NotPetya had crippled major institutions in Ukraine, including banks, power companies, airports, and even the government itself. But it didn't stop at Ukraine's borders. Multinational corporations with operations in Ukraine also fell victim. Global giants like Merck, FedEx's subsidiary TNT Express, and the French construction firm Saint-Gobain were among the worst hit. Maersk, the world's largest shipping company, had to shut down operations at dozens of ports around the globe. Merck's vaccine production was halted. The cumulative damages were estimated to be over $10 billion, making NotPetya the most costly cyber attack in history. The devastation caused by NotPetya forced companies and governments to reassess their cybersecurity strategies. The use of legitimate software as the infection vector was particularly concerning. It highlighted the risks of software supply chain attacks, where a trusted application is compromised to distribute malware. This technique bypasses traditional antivirus and firewall protections, allowing malware to enter networks undetected. NotPetya also underscored the need for timely patching of vulnerabilities. Eternal Blue, the NSA exploit it used, had been patched by Microsoft months before the attack. However, many organizations had not applied the update, leaving them exposed. The identity of the attackers behind NotPetya was initially a mystery. However, cybersecurity firms and intelligence agencies soon pointed the finger at the Russian Military Intelligence Agency, the GRU. The evidence included similarities in code, tactics, and infrastructure to other known Russian cyber operations. Moreover, the choice of Ukraine as the initial target suggested a geopolitical motive. Ukraine had been in conflict with Russia since the annexation of Crimea in 2014, and cyberattacks had become a recurring feature of that conflict. NotPetya appeared to be part of a broader campaign to destabilize Ukraine by targeting its economy and government institutions. In 2018, the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand formally attributed the NotPetya attack to the Russian government. This marked one of the rare occasions where countries publicly blamed another nation for a cyberattack. The U.S. Treasury Department also imposed sanctions on several Russian individuals and entities in response. However, the public attribution did little to stop future attacks or hold the perpetrators accountable. Cyber warfare operates in a legal gray area, and international norms for behavior in cyberspace are still evolving. NotPetya's impact extended beyond financial losses and political tensions. It served as a wake-up call for the fragility of the interconnected digital world. The idea that malware released in one country could bring down global logistics, healthcare, and manufacturing was chilling. Organizations began investing more in cybersecurity, developing incident response plans, and rethinking the architecture of their networks. The concept of zero-trust security, which assumes no device or user is automatically trustworthy, gained traction as a way to prevent similar intrusions. In Ukraine, NotPetya was just one of many cyberattacks it suffered during its ongoing conflict with Russia. The country became a testing ground for new forms of cyber warfare, from power grid disruptions to psychological operations on social media. For Ukraine, these digital assaults were not isolated incidents. They were part of a broader strategy to undermine the state. NotPetya fit this pattern perfectly, designed to look like a ransomware attack to confuse analysts and delay attribution, while actually serving as a digital scorched earth weapon. Another notable aspect of NotPetya was its efficiency. Unlike traditional ransomware, which focuses on file encryption, NotPetya went straight for the computer's master boot record (MBR). By corrupting this vital section of a hard drive, it rendered systems unbootable. This meant that even data recovery from backups could be challenging, as some companies discovered too late that their backup systems were also infected. The malware also avoided certain language settings, such as Russian and Ukrainian, which further fueled suspicions about its origin. The attack's use of multiple spreading mechanisms made it highly virulent. Eternal Blue exploited unpatched SMB vulnerabilities, PSExec allowed remote command execution, and WMI enabled fileless lateral movement. This combination of tools allowed it to rapidly escalate from a single infected machine to an entire network. In many cases, even spread beyond corporate networks to partners, vendors, and clients, demonstrating the ripple effect that a cyberattack can have in a globalized economy. Another disturbing trend is the blending of criminal and state-sponsored cyber activity. By disguising a cyber weapon as ransomware, the creators of NotPetya blurred the lines between nation-state attacks and criminal operations. This makes attribution more difficult and allows state actors to deny involvement. It also complicates responses. Should a company report a ransomware incident to law enforcement? Or is it an act of war that requires a national defense response? NotPetya's legacy continues to influence cybersecurity thinking. It demonstrated that cyberattacks could be used not just to steal data, but to inflict real-world damage on economies and infrastructure. The attack raised questions about the responsibility of software vendors, the importance of supply chain security, and the need for international cooperation. It also highlighted the risks of cyber escalation. What if NotPetya had triggered a broader conflict between nations? What if it had targeted critical infrastructure in a way that caused physical harm or loss of life? The lessons of NotPetya are many. The importance of updating software, the need for segmented networks, the risks of trusting software supply chains, and the value of international cooperation in attributing and responding to cyber threats. But perhaps the most important lesson is that we must remain vigilant. The digital battlefield is constantly evolving, and as long as there are adversaries willing to weaponize software for political or military ends, the threat of another NotPetya will always loom over our interconnected world. Thanks for watching Xciting Machines. NotPetya wasn't just a hack, it was a wake-up call to the world about the true power of cyber warfare. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories about the machines, technologies, and events that shape our world. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.